Now we're going to go into our next session. And I do know that Helen is on the line. I see her cameras come up. Helen, I'm going to make you a presenter as I read your bio here as well, because I do know you have your presentation there ready to go. So we'll kind of send that control over to you, and I'll let everybody know that Helen is the director of the Freedom Drivers Project for Truckers Against Trafficking, also commonly referred to as TAT. You'll see that a lot out there. In her role, she uses the TAT mobile exhibit, the Freedom Drivers Project, to educate and empower members of the trucking, bus, and energy industries, along with the general public, about sex trafficking and how these industries are driving change to the issue. So I want to welcome Helen. She's got a fantastic presentation to share with us today. There will be time for Q&A after as well. But welcome to the symposium, and I'll kind of pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charlie. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone at Transret, for making it possible for us to present and be here with you today. I'm sad we couldn't be in person. I am supporting the Canadian industry while I don't actually get to be in Canada, which makes me very sad. So hopefully that will change soon. But really why we're here today is because this is a real issue that we have really tangible things we can do about. Today I want to talk to you about the reality of trafficking, what Truckers Against Trafficking is doing about it, and the critical role you can play in helping to end this crime. If you do have any questions similar to the other panels, there will be time at the end, so definitely enter those in, save those, and ask anything about trafficking or Truckers Against Trafficking at the end of our presentation. So first off, what is human trafficking? According to the Canadian Criminal Code, human trafficking is the transportation, recruiting, harboring, and/or exercising direction, control, or influence over the movements of a person for the purposes of exploitation, typically sexual exploitation or forced labor. So when we talk about sexual exploitation, we're talking about prostitution, pornography, brothels, strip clubs, and most typically a pimp. Or then with forced labor, we're talking about agricultural fields, sweatshops, being forced to work long hours without pay and being held against their will. And then all of that is being driven by a trafficker, by a victimizer, someone who is earning a profit off of someone else's labor. That is human trafficking, and it's most certainly modern day slavery. And as much as we would love to think that this doesn't happen where we are, certainly it couldn't relate to anyone I know or any place I know, but reality just doesn't bear that out. If you take a few seconds to Google it, I came up with these headlines and plenty more that I had to not include on the slide here. And let's draw this back to the commercial vehicle. So this is Laura Sorensen and Aldair Hodsta. They were arrested at a truck stop in Virginia. At 3:20 p.m., officers arrived on scene. They were allowed inside the RV by the suspects. The suspects were telling them they're in the area, they're just visiting their daughter. But their alleged daughter appeared frightened and was exhibiting signs of malnutrition. Thankfully, one of the troopers went ahead and took that young woman outside the RV, but it wasn't until she was able to break eye contact and line of sight with these individuals that finally she broke down. She was crying, saying, "Please do not put me back inside that RV." She at that point told the investigators that she had been held against her will, that they'd threatened to kill or injure her family, that she'd been hurt physically and sexually by them, and that she couldn't remember the last time she'd had something to eat or drink, adding that a couple of days had likely passed. Once in the ambulance, she told investigators that the suspects had actually branded her, so they were heating up metal objects on the RV stove and burning her on various parts of her body. And she did try to run away at one point, but because of that, they caught her and they actually put a nail through the bottom of her foot to tell her to never do that again. They also forced her to call her family. So she was literally on the phone with her family, and she was forced to tell them that nothing out of the ordinary was going on. I can't imagine being on the phone with your family, just saying, "Hey, I'm 20, don't mess with me, I'm doing whatever I want," and not being able to say what was really going on. According to the incident report, she later told investigators that she'd been forced to have oral sex with Hodsta and another unknown male that same day in the RV in the parking lot. That encounter had been arranged online. And that is what trafficking can look like. And so it's in response to these realities that Truckers Against Trafficking recognizes that the trucking industry, through your sheer numbers, extensive travels, and the nature of your jobs, that you can provide an extra set of eyes and ears to law enforcement to assist in the recovery of victims and the arrest of traffickers and buyers. Especially since in the course of their everyday jobs, professional drivers are in locations where they can come in contact with potential victims. Here's a list of some of those locations, but this is not an exhaustive list. Traffickers will take their victims wherever they think they can make money, wherever they think they will find a buyer. Because they are counting on everyone thinking, oh, that's just someone out on their own. That's someone who is just a prostitute, just don't even pay attention. And that is when the trafficker wins. But imagine if every driver was trained, knew what to look for, and knew to make that call immediately. How many more victims would be recovered and traffickers and buyers arrested? And that is our goal. So in 2009, Truckers Against Trafficking was formed, and we exist to educate, equip, empower, and mobilize members of the trucking, bus, and energy industries to combat domestic sex trafficking as a part of your everyday jobs. Now we have two main training tools to accomplish this. First is our training video. This is on, you can put it on your internal LMS. We have it on a number of external LMS. We have a physical DVD as well as a digital download copy. Then second is our wallet card, which is in your handout section. So make sure to check that out because I can't cover everything about it in this presentation time. But basic parts on the front, you'll see the National Human Trafficking Hotline number, 1-833-900-1010. This is a number you can call anywhere in Canada at any point in time to report a potential trafficking case anonymously and confidentially. We do recommend to not approach a trafficker or a victim, as this could put you in danger, the potential victim in danger, as well as the potential case. But if you are to place a business, make sure to call that number as soon as you see something that it hits some of those red flags, as well as then tell the manager of the site so that they're able to keep an eye out for it as well. Once you open that card, you'll see the basic definition of human trafficking, what law enforcement needs when reporting a tip, as well as then those red flags to be looking for. But the two most important things are, one, to make that call immediately. The sooner you call, the sooner they're able to get victim resources involved, as well as then potentially law enforcement. And second, it is okay to be wrong. That is why the hotline is there. So that even if you're not totally sure what you're seeing, you're able to call them, talk to them about it, they're able to assess the situation and make sure anyone involved gets the right help that they need. And how much better to take 15 minutes of your time, maybe someone else's time, find out it isn't trafficking, than to have not made that call and to leave that person in a life of sexual slavery. The great news is that this is working. TAT has been around in the United States for over 10 years. We launched in Canada a year ago with a gap in the middle due to COVID, but are really excited to be here as kind of this relaunch in Canada. Through those numbers, this is the US National Hotline number. Through that work, we know over 2,600 calls have been made from the industry. That's led to the identification of 700 different cases involving multiple people, including the identification of over 1,200 individual survivors. And we have to remember that this is also then this one section of the data. This is only people who knew to call the hotline and did. This doesn't include people who maybe called emergency services directly or just told a security officer or took care of it and just got victim services involved. But it does begin to give us an idea of the scope of the issue, as well as the impact that the industry can have when trained and equipped to do something about it. And all of this brings us back to these guys. Kevin Kimmel, and the thousands of drivers who are out there like him, safely and diligently delivering products across Canada. So Kevin Kimmel happened to be at the same truck stop as Laura Sorensen and Hal der Hodsda. He noticed a couple different people going from the convenience store to the RV. He noticed different people knocking on the door of the RV, and if it's your RV, why are you knocking? But it wasn't until he saw a young woman stick her head outside the RV, only to have it violently yanked back and a curtain drawn in its place, that he went ahead and made that call. And it's because of that call that she was separated from her traffickers, that she was able to go home and get the recovery services that she needed. And Sorensen and Hodsda have since been sentenced to 40 and 41 years in prison. Kevin Kimmel and drivers like him are making a huge difference out there on the road. So what can you do about it? First, commit to making the call. As you all are out there traveling, as you are sharing this with other people, make sure you have the wallet card. You can download our app, Truckers Against Trafficking. It has all these red flag indicators in the app, as well as then a link to the number to call. And remember, it is okay to be wrong. Might as well call it and report it and hopefully gather enough data to lead to a recovery at some point, if not immediately. Second, where do you intersect? Do you train drivers directly? Do you work with companies who work with drivers? How about your employees? Are they traveling in locations to different cities and hotels and driving down the road where they might be able to identify trafficking? Use this opportunity to be able to share about Truckers Against Trafficking. Simply asking, have you heard of Truckers Against Trafficking, or are you aware of human trafficking, can be great conversation starters. And I don't think I said this earlier, but all of our training is free. We just want to make sure that you get this out there. And our training video, it can be in 30 minutes or less. And last but not least, spread the word, not only to the other colleagues in the industry, but take this back to your dinner tables. Talk about the work that the trucking industry is doing to combat trafficking. Talk about the reality of who a pimp really is, who a trafficker really is. Kids need to hear the truth from a trusted authority figure so that they could peer identify and hopefully not, but self-identify. Human trafficking is one of the greatest human rights violations of our day. And while most people desire to go beyond the bottom line to make a lasting difference for the good, not everyone is in a position to do so, but you are. The trucking industry is getting behind this movement, and each one of you can be a critical player in ensuring that more lives are saved. So thank you for your time. I do want to bring up, let's see, Liz, if you want to turn on your video. Great. So as I mentioned, we are relaunching in Canada. So Liz Williamson has been one of our partners for a couple of years. She is a fantastic survivor leader out of California and is now coming on full time to help grow some of our Canadian partnerships. Liz, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciated listening to your symposium this morning because, as Helen mentioned, I am brand new to the trucking industry. However, I am a survivor of sex trafficking with just a passion to see lives impacted, and I know that starts with relationships with drivers who are out on the road because I know the power of just what one person did for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. Charlie, I know we want to pop over and do some questions if we have any in the chat.
So Helen, first, let me start by saying thank you. What a powerful and impactful presentation. I've seen a few presentations from TAT over the last year and a half, and each one just gives me the chills every time. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. We are at time, but there is one question here, and I think it's important to you and to Liz that I'd like to share. Then the other questions, of course, I'll forward to you after. But obviously, I think you hit a chord with a few of our delegates. How do we get those TAP materials to share with our drivers and our staff? And I know you have some stuff in the handouts, but the other materials that you were referencing.
Yeah. So to be able to get the link to the DVD and figure out the best way to train, you can actually reach directly out to Liz. So I think you can see her email on the screen. Reach out to her, let her know how many drivers you have and how you train them, and then we can get you all the materials you need sent your way. Good question.
Fantastic. No, thank you very much, Helen. Liz, welcome to this side of it. You know, the trucking industry is a fantastic community, and I'm sure you will be welcomed with open arms and for all the great work that the two of you are going to be doing. Thank you.
Definitely. Thanks so much, everyone.